Manchester United. Ollie Gamp reporting United in £60 million bribe bid. Brian Mbeumo. Charlotte, what can you tell us? How close do you think Manchester United are to landing the Brentford man?
Yeah, I think it's getting a lot closer. We obviously know that their first bid, which was around 45 million plus 5 in add-ons, was rejected. Brentford were looking at just over 60 million, I think, for their forward. So I think we're getting a lot closer to that target price that Brentford are after. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is one that Manchester United do manage to get over the line. We obviously knew that after they managed to get Cunha, Liam Delap was obviously their number one target in the forward positions. They lost out on him to Chelsea. After they managed to get Cunha through the line, and Mbeumo was the one that they've been looking to secure. So the idea is to get as much as Ruben Amorim's squad in place before they return to pre-season training, which I think is on the 7th of July. So it'd be good if they could get this deal over the line quickly, get him integrated into the group as soon as they return. And he could be a really interesting signing for them. This is a guy who scored 20 Premier League goals last season. If you look at Manchester United's top 2 goal scorers in the league last season, it was Ahmad and Bruno Fernandes, who got 8 each. So they really are desperate for goals up that end of the pitch. I still do think they need a specialist number 9 to contribute with those goals, to bring competition to Rasmus Højlund, because he didn't have a very good campaign last season. But he's definitely another one to add some attacking flair and different dynamic to that Manchester United forward line. If they can get it over the line, which we've obviously not heard from the Brentford side yet, whether they're going to accept this bid, but we do know that Manchester United have submitted a second bid, which is believed to be in excess of 60 million.
It's going to be interesting to see what Brentford's response isn't it? Martin Blackburn in The Sun carries the story as well. Red hot, reference the hot part to Chelsea's struggles in Philadelphia, which John can talk about a little bit later. But the red bid is Man United's second bid of £60 million for Mbeumo. Martin Blackburn does point out here, John, that he was also wanted by his old boss, Thomas Frank, at Tottenham Hotspur. We're having a chat pre-show, though, and you were just saying that maybe Spurs have only served to ratchet up the price a little bit. What's your take on the way this is playing out?
Yeah, it does feel a bit like that, Teddy, really. It feels as if if you've only got one club that's really serious on a player, then I do think you're lacking a kind of the market value and the market price pushing up on a player who I think is absolutely outstanding. I do think he's fantastic. He's so exciting to watch, particularly when he's sort of kind of out on the right, cutting in on, sort of on the left-hand side. And I just think he's absolutely a terrific player with pace, with real strength and great decision-making, fantastic output, as Charlotte mentioned, in terms of goals and assists. And I genuinely think that this guy can really light up the Premier League. And I do feel as if along the way there, he's probably made it clear that his preferred destination is Manchester United and Old Trafford, which is all well and good, but not very helpful to Brentford, frankly, because if they're trying to sort of kind of get a price and the player's made his mind up, it's not particularly helpful. I do get the impression that Brentford were braced for this. Brentford are such a well-run football club, and they kind of always get their ducks in a row before things happen, and so they kind of line things up. They're determined to keep Visser. I kind of think they were braced for Frank going. But I do wonder whether almost Spurs have been a bit of a Trojan horse, in sort of kind of making things happen by sort of kind of, I'm sure Thomas Frank would have been interested in his former player, knows what he can do. And therefore, it's kind of worked in their favour that Spurs, undoubtedly, there's been an interest there. They've made a bid, haven't they? So, but I do think that maybe it's done everyone a favour, really, particularly for Brentford, because if they kind of got the inkling that the player really fancies Man United, then I'm afraid to say there's not much of a market going on. Spurs created one, and the price has then duly gone up. And I do think even if United can get him just over 60 million quid, I think that's a good bit of business. I really do. I think it speaks to United's pulling power, the history of the club, and the sort of the glamour and the dream of the club, which has clearly been sold to Mbeumo. If they can do that, and Cunha already done, then I actually think that United are on course for a pretty exceptional window.
Interesting that it says Martin Blackburn report, Charlotte, that Newcastle also interested, but Brentford now weighing up this offer from Manchester United. Talking of United's transfer policy more broadly, follows on the heels potentially of the signing already done of Cunha, Charlotte. Is there a change attack here? Amorim's not bringing in players from Portugal the way that Ten Hag brought in players from Dutch football.
Yeah, I don't think it's just Amarim's changing tact. I think if you obviously look at the change in the football recruitment department, Jason Wilcox has become football director, and he's working closely with Christopher Vivell, and he's working closely with Omar Barada as well. So I think between the three of them, they're trying. This is their first big transfer window, that they feel the need to get it right. And like you said, that they're turning to Premier League proven talent, of which Cunha obviously is, and Mbeumo is. Delap was obviously he's gone to Chelsea, and other players that they're looking at as well have got Premier League proven experience. My colleague did a piece at the weekend saying Jonathan Norcroft, 1.7 billion on Manchester United have spent on transfers since 2013. They've only brought in 10 established players from Premier League clubs. If you compare that to other clubs at the top five, sitting at the top of the Premier League, say in the top six, for example, they've favoured a lot more going for this Premier League experience, and these teams have gone on and won titles. So it's about getting that fine balance, isn't it? Finding those hidden gems from abroad, bringing them in, bringing that flair, bringing that excitement to the league. But also you need those players who know exactly what it takes in the pressure cooker of the Premier League. Rasmus Højlund, for example, is one of those players who looks at the minute like he just can't cut it in this league. Whereas we know that Mbeumo can score 20 goals a season. So I think they're looking at that as a model at the minute, and they're thinking if we can get these players in who don't take 1, 2, 3 seasons to bed in, and can hit the ground running, this Manchester United team needs to hit the ground running straight away next season, because they're already under so much pressure given the disaster that was the last campaign. So yeah, it is a change in tact in terms of the transfer strategy. It's not necessarily a remarkable one. Plenty of other Premier League teams have been doing this for years. Manchester United used to do it. Look at the players that they brought in the past: Wayne Rooney, Edwin van der Sar. They've been successful in their pursuits in the past of poaching from other Premier League teams, but it's just not something we've seen in the recent past. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it pays off for them. But both of those signings, if Mbeumo obviously gets over the line, should be good signings for them.
Yeah, both players proven in the Premier League. Charlotte, they're talking about Rasmus Højlund. John, just want to come back to you quickly on how he might fit in Mbeumo at Manchester United. You said he's at his best cutting in off the right-hand side, but Amad Diallo's also good at that. Is there any temptation to try and mould him into a 9, or have we been down that road before with Rashford at Manchester United?
Yeah, I think that would be a shame, if I'm honest. Yes, I could see him doing it because I think he's an outstanding player. I mean, I must say, I think I sort of kind of told this anecdote previously, but basically sort of a former Premier League manager was saying to me, a few weeks back, saying that, wow, why isn't half the rest of the Premier League after this guy? Because honestly, he kind of likened him to kind of style and kind of ability and level as as Salah. Basically, when Salah joined Liverpool, yes, he had some improving work to do, but he was a player with pace, dynamism, and I think that. Would you ever have put Salah in the middle? No, you wouldn't. And I just think you're compromising on the talent there. And basically, I think it would be a shame if United do that. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, and they've kind of got a greater sort of kind of scouting and sort of tactical knowledge than me, and sort of kind of got a plan for him. But my idea would be, I think United would be fabulous if they basically had Cunha on one side and Mbeumo on the other, and you'd give a real thrust. And then it's up to other players to kind of really sort of kind of compete, and sort of that's what you want, a competitive culture about it. And I think that Mbeumo, I do like this player. You probably gathered that by now. And I just think that would be a hell of a coup for United. I do think they also need a 9. I mean, Højlund, it has been such a disappointment, bearing in mind that the price that they've paid. There's lots of talk about Nkunku, isn't there, basically at Chelsea. I wonder whether that can kind of, sort of be something that they could explore. But I feel as if he's not your classic 9 either. And I do think I think to make United work in that system, and particularly the way that Amarim likes to play, I do think I'm sure that they'll have to have another look and see what they can do in terms of a 9. I do think it's worth also mentioning that kind of going back to Spurs, I do think Spurs have clearly had an interest in the player because they're looking at wide options. And I think Eberechi Eze, I think, is in a few papers, and understandably so. It's something that we did sort of kind of yesterday, just to sort of say Spurs looking at their wide options, and Mbeumo has clearly perhaps sort of in United's sights right now. But Eze, if someone can do that for £68 million, which has been widely reported as a sort of a buyout clause, then I also think that's great value. I'm sure Palace will be determined to keep him, but I do think it's quite an interesting one, sort of a bit of a merry-go-round on really talented players in the Premier League, and could be a really interesting window in the next few weeks.
Let's hope so. Really fascinating, that, isn't it? Lots of wide forwards, lots of 10s. Where have all the 9s gone? It's probably a debate.
Man United submit huge second offer for Bryan Mbeumo as desperate Ruben Amorim accelerates summer transfer plans. The Red Devils had a £55 million offer turned down by Brentford earlier this month, but club officials have now tabled a new and improved proposal. Sunsport understands the latest offer is worth in excess of £60 million. Ruben Amorim is desperate to bring Mbeumo to Manchester as quickly as possible. Man United are continuing their work behind the scenes, with the priority now being to sign a striker after welcoming Matheus Cunha through the door. Bryan Mbeumo is a key target, with the Brentford man seemingly set to decide on a move to Old Trafford or Tottenham. A move for a striker is expected to follow once the Mbeumo deal is completed, but there has also been speculation about United potentially replacing Andre Onana in goal. Reports claim AS Monaco have offered the United number 1 a way out of Old Trafford, with Aston Villa's Emiliano Martinez identified as a possible replacement. In the past 24 hours, several updates have emerged about the futures of Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho. Rashford's dream move to Barcelona appears to be off, with Nico Williams now set to join the Nou camp. Meanwhile, clubs in Italy are reportedly preparing bids for Sancho.